Hello and welcome to another edition of Kayak Fishing Weekly. I'm your host, Justin Largen. As always, we're the show on the Serious Angler Podcast Network that's dedicated to all things kayak fishing. So we're going to talk a little fishing tonight. Got a few notes, some stuff we got to jump in, or I guess we got to cover before jumping into the meat of the show. A little bit of news. So we had a big tournament, one of the national trails. Hobie Bass Open had its regular season finale on Chickamauga this past weekend. I actually was down there. I did not do very well. Our guest did do very well though, so I'm excited to talk to him. But just to shout out the top finishers from that event. In third place, Jay Wallen put up 169 and 7 3/4 inches. In second was Scott Stuhlman with 170.5 inches. And then first place, kind of a not a real surprise, I guess. Russ Snyder's seems like he's winning everything this year. Russ put up 190 and 3/4 inches to win by over 20 inches in a 2-day tournament, which is absolutely insane. But he absolutely smashed them. It was a tough tournament. Uh, I jotted down some notes earlier. Scrolling through Tourney X, I saw on day one there were 42 anglers that posted limits. So just over, or maybe it was just under half the field. I think there were 80 some anglers. So roughly half the field put up limits the first day. And the second day, there were only 36. So not the best conditions. It was not a feast kind of situation, more of a famine. Um, but congrats to those guys who put up big numbers down in Tennessee. Um, Also, I'm still reeling a little bit on the Bassmaster side. The Lake Fork announcement. I don't remember the exact date that it was announced, but it's been out for a week and a half, 2 weeks now. I believe Bassmaster Kayak Series in 2025 going to have their championship on Lake Fork, March 19th and 20th. Right now, I am not qualified, uh, and I believe. Well, I'll segue that into there's one opportunity left down in October, the 19th and 20th. It's going to be in Texas, Louisiana, Lakes Caddo and Bistineau. Right now, there's only 48 guys signed up. We got about a month until the tournament, so I expect that the sign up is going to pick up. Always seems like a pretty good crowd shows up down in Texas, and that's an awesome venue. So that is the last regular season event for anglers to qualify for that fork tournament next spring. Um, but don't forget, Bassmaster has these Bass Nation programs. So there's one in Virginia. There's going to be a championship, Bass Nation championship. I believe the November or the Virginia one is in November. Don't remember the exact date, but that'll be an opportunity for me to try to qualify. So check your Bass Nation for your home state, even if you didn't make it, didn't get into enough Bassmaster events, haven't qualified through the trail, you still have an opportunity to make it down to Texas. And Lake Fork is a bucket list place. I've been down a few times. It's always been fun. I love that lake, and I hope to get to go down there next spring. Uh, One other major event coming up. It is actually, let me pull up the notes here. The season finale for the inaugural Kayak Adventure Series. Their broodstock tournament. Let me see if I can pull up the notes here. It's going to be in Bowling Green, Kentucky. Sorry, October 4th and 5th. So right around the corner. As always, they do a Friday and Saturday tournament. It's kind of a half day on Friday, full day Saturday, and top five fish combined for those 2 days. But it's a kind of in keeping with what Drew's doing with that series. They're going to a lot of cool places that are off the beaten path, not as well known. So I don't know any of these lakes that are in play. It seems like it's a lot of smaller lakes. They've got Nolan Lake, Barren River Lake, Green River, the Barren River, the Nolan River, the Upper Red River, Peabody Wildlife Management lakes and ponds, and then any other river or creek free flowing into those aforementioned rivers and lakes. So really cool. They're taking that trail, introducing people to some new places. So if you're free that weekend and want to get in, yeah, October, what do we say, 4th and 5th, Bowling Green, Kentucky, the season finale. They're calling it the Broodstock event for Kayak Adventure Series. And uh, I have not seen updated Hobie BOS Angler of the Year standings that include this last Chickamauga tournament. From what I could tell, and I did not do a deep dive, I expect AJ to have those out soon, and I'll report on those as soon as I have them officially. Russ was already in the lead. It was a very close race. Um, I suspect he'll have a little bit more of a lead after winning that tournament. And then the other angler that I think may have helped his cause a little bit, Jody Queen was sitting in 4th, had a top 10 finish in this event, so I think he'll gain some points and narrow that gap. But yeah, I'm excited to see what the standings look like going into the Hobie Tournament of Champions here next month, no, November. And then Bassmaster, they have not had any new tournaments since we talked last, but Russ still has the lead in that Angler of the Year race, also with 730 points. Casey Reed with 717 is in second, and in third is Derek Brundle with 707. So, and again, one other opportunity to make a jump in those standings going to be down at Caddo and Bistineau next month. And yeah, again, I am excited about where they're going, Lake Fork for the 25 championship. All right, but that's enough news and notes. Let's get into the fun part. I got a fun guest today. I already mentioned he had a great tournament down at Chickamauga this past weekend. One of the better known anglers in our sport, I think, Mr. Dusty Yakker. Dusty, thank you for joining me.
Hey, man. Good evening, dude. Thank you so much for having me on. Just a little excitement for an otherwise mundane Wednesday evening.
There you go. There you go. And as I said, you had a great tournament, 4th place finish.
Yeah.
I don't remember. I had the totals pulled up. What was your 2-day total, dude?
I think it was whatever Jay Wallens was. I was a quarter inch below him. So I think it was, yeah, it was 169 and a quarter. I think he was 169 and a half.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And
you
know,
were right
yeah,
there.
as we know, it's a game of quarter inches, man.
It is.
Totally.
I've had that cost me thousands of dollars on more than one occasion.
Oh yeah, you and
usually
I
on the wrong end.
Totally. You and I. Well, I've had it, but I've had it benefit me. But man, it seems mostly like, you remember the times when you were just shy.
Definitely. Well, I want to jump into Chick, kind of talking about what you did down there. It was
Sure.
tough conditions, like I was talking about before. I struggled. I didn't even get a limit the second day. I finished down the middle of the pack. But so I'm curious to hear how you did it. I tuned in and listened to a couple of the top finishers and heard a little bit of what they were doing. But yeah, it was a tough deal for me, and I think for a lot of guys.
Yeah, I think it was a tough deal for most everybody. I think everybody probably had some sort of area of uncertainty and doubt on some level, whether their spots will still produce, what might happen morning versus afternoon, or even in real time for sure. But Justin, most of my challenges honestly were off water. I'm so grateful for some of the luxury I have with pre-fishing. I'm usually able on these events that I attend to at least get 3 days of practice in. Sometimes it's 4
Nice.
days, but I had like a lot of maintenance and just pure bad luck, things breaking. So a lot of my practice time was compromised. But it's kind of funny. One of the more frustrating, like a little frustrating things was listening to Russ's post game interview, if you will, when he was talking about what he was doing. That is like exactly the kind of thing I had going down. Like going down, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna try to find like some of the kind of the color of the water I like. I think I want to stick to like some main river sections. I want to be close to like some ledges and some good weed patches and some docks and stuff. And that's exactly what I did. But with my limited time in practice, I also wanted to check out some creeks and like some other areas and stuff like that. So I didn't get to see the water nearly as much as I would love to. And I was super like insecure, if you will, about that. I was like, man, I don't know what to do. I wish I could have done this or eliminated this or seen this, but it is what it is. And I just went fishing. So luckily, as often as it is on Friday, a little later in the day and during practice, I had everything dialed in by that point. I found a little something, and that sort of gave me, a little confidence as to what I might do, or something that I can kind of go to if Saturday doesn't sort of unfold the way that I wanted it to, and that was fish on docks. I had in the time I did get on the water in practice, it was not looking good because some of the things I was focusing on, like main lake, little main lake cuts and sloughs, main lake laydowns, main lake grass, it just wasn't producing, and I wasn't getting bit at all really good in the creeks. I'd have to work like an hour. Like with moving baits, like it was like an hour and a half between bites. So things weren't great. There were a few fish here and there, but I wasn't on anything solid. And then, of course, a little bit late in Friday in practice, I came upon a little dock something. So that proved to be the ticket Saturday as I moved in and out of areas like that. I was mid main lake. And I was attacking areas where I could have access to a good cut and slough, a rock point, some grass between the docks, grass on the docks, and have access to docks that weren't all necessarily sitting in 20 foot of water in the front end and 6 foot of water in the back end. They sort of varied in depth. And, kind of want to check them out. I love picking apart docks as a kayak person, especially in a 360. You can pick apart every single square inch of that dock. They'll never know you're there unless you make dumb noise. And I think for most of the tournament, I relied on that. I relied on just fish in and around docks for like my fish I thought I can grab.
Nice.
Yeah.
I didn't even consider that. There's one area that I was in the first day that had a few docks, and I might have made 5 casts total at docks for the event.
It listening to everybody tell stories where they were able to pick off fish in areas that were fishy. That was what was frustrating me. I mean, I was coming across prime stuff. I'm like, what's going on? And I'm throwing chatterbaits around perimeters. I'm throwing DT 8s and square bills around riprap and rocky points. I don't really care for shaky heads, but I understand how lethal of a bait it is. Had that tied on. Didn't seem to find the success that other people were finding on the shaky heads. I love flipping jigs into cover. I mean, I absolutely love it. And I wasn't seemingly getting like more solid bites on there. Like I'd get like a 13-inch, fish, maybe on the outside or something like that. My big fish came on finesse jig, a 3/8 ounce Kayak small football head finesse jig. And a really tiny chunk trailer, like a really compact presentation. And it came fishing brush piles vertically on the down current side of the main river docks. It was super predictable later in the day. If the fish were there, they'd bite it right away. If they weren't, you kind of, you'd see that, or you'd figure that out, and you kind of move to the next one. And Friday, I was able to mark all that stuff. And Saturday, I was able to mark a lot more. So, man, by the time Sunday came around, I was super efficient, even though the bite had died and I was only able to get 5 bites on Sunday. It was enough of a pattern, if you will, to, secure the check and be real close to some hardware and, top 3 finish.
Oh yeah. Less than an inch away from one of those coveted trophies.
Yeah. But, like we were saying a little bit before when we were previewing this setup, I mean, I feel like I left. I know all anglers feel that way. In hindsight, it's always 2020. But man, I absolutely feel like I left some inches and therefore some cash and some trophies on the table. I got a little too stubborn with that finesse jig. I was like, what? I'm not going to goof around with any other presentation, and that's not the smartest thing, because sometimes you miss a decent sized fish, hanging around the pot, like I throw a jerk bait in the front, or maybe skipping the chatterbait, alongside, or I could have, I also had some like a 1/4 inch ball head, spark shad, like some smaller swim baits. that like later in the day on Sunday, I was kind of ignoring a little bit, because as the day progressed, going from dock to dock, I'd fish in between and I'd fish really good looking stuff. And as the day progressed, I got less and less confident in that moving stuff. And I think if I just would have perhaps been a little more consistent with firing away at good looking cover in between my docks and good looking areas, instead of kind of blowing through it a little fast, I might have been able to secure it, but I might not have. I mean, the way it works out is I did technically get 5 fish on Sunday, and I did my job. But you're always looking to improve. You're always looking at like what you could have done, and I think what I could have done was slow down in some of the weeds and the woods and the rocks in between my more prime areas.
It's so hard to know, though. It's so hard to look back. It's like when you didn't get the finish you want, you think about what you could do differently. But I mean, it could have just as easily gone the other way. Like I've had times where, like you were talking about sort of junk fishing, you wish you tried more, mixing things up. Like that was what Russ did. Like Russ was like, when I got around a rock, I threw a crankbait. When I got
totally.
Exactly. I slung a chatterbait under it. It was like,
yeah, and it all worked out. He's catching like larger fish than the field both days. So 20 inches that's obscene, and I mean, and for lack of a better word, that's just a good old fashioned ass whooping. So it's okay. It's being so close to some hardware and some more money is a little frustrating, but I mean, 4th place is enough to be proud of. So definitely some AOI points. I imagine I'll probably be right around Jody Queen. I mean, it's got to be something like Russ, Ewing, Jody, Christine, me, and however else, Jordan.
Because I think it was 1 point. It was Russ, and I can't remember if it was Ewing, Christine, or Christine Ewing, but they were whatever it was. It was 1 point difference between first.
I don't remember either.
Point difference to second, point difference to third.
Yeah.
And then with your great finish, you'll jump up. Jody had a great finish. I think he'll, like, even if you don't, it's going to be much closer inches wise. But then Russ is going to get points.
It's just hard to beat that guy. That's all it is to it. It's just very hard to beat that guy. And I'm super proud to compete in the space with him. I think it's 99%. Well, I don't know about 99. I'm going to be honest here. It's like 90% a great thing for the sport, maybe 10% not, because I'm sure some people just don't bother registering if they see his name on the list, or it's like, oh, there he goes again. And it's like, for me, it's just motivation, because you want to beat the best, you always want to be right there. But I think mostly it's not about who's on the dang register list or the other anglers. I mean, I got enough to fight when it's Dusty versus Dusty. So
I'm the
only angler I got to beat, man.
Yeah, definitely. You said something a minute ago that you were talking about the 360, and maybe we'll talk about that in a minute. Yeah. But you mentioned dumb noise, and that's something that, I mean, I know I do it. I know exactly what you're talking about. But
that's not even the word. I got a worse word for it, man.
Do you?
Well, I mean, let's keep it clean.
Okay. Well, I guess for the folks that maybe don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Like what is that dumb noise you're referring to?
Well, I mean, let's just go back to fishing in general. I mean, one of the stereotypes about fishing is, being quiet, sort of being stealthy and stuff like that. I mean, maybe not. I don't know what people associate with their fishing memories, or like, kind of how they have to be or whatever. Maybe they blast music out of their boat. I'm not sure. But what I know is that growing up with my crazy dad and my uncle, dude, you didn't make noise in the frickin' boat. You just didn't do it. If you made it accidentally, you got cracked across the back, and you just kind of like learn real quick that you just don't make noise in the boat. But it is.
Was it like a no talking and everybody's whispering?
They would be drinking, like, if it was the morning, they would be drinking like Folgers coffee, and my dad would have like Winston lights. They'd all be like smoking. Yeah, they'd all be smoking and sort of quiet, and there would be like little whispered voices for sure. And there wasn't like a lot of like, crazy stuff like that for sure. But then by the afternoon, they started cracking beers, and whether the bobbers were going down or not, the conversation got a little louder. You know how that goes. So, in any case, for many years when I first started doing the national trail, I was using a Hobie PA12 that I won at a competition on the Michigan Kayak Trail, and it came outfitted with a marine mat, awesome camo deck matting. I mean, I loved it. It was a very quiet boat. And kayaks are obviously plastic, and they're accessorized, there's T tracks on some of them. We got a lot of stuff on the deck and accessories and nets and stuff. The catch board certainly is something that we're grabbing and stuff. We're often at the wind's mercy, maybe drifting into a dock or rubbing up against the cover or shore. And when you make noise in a boat, man, that the acoustics underwater aren't like the acoustics above water, and for us. So that stuff just shoots through the water column. It alerts fish that we're often on pressurized bodies of water, and we don't need these fish to be any more sort of conditioned and spooked that they are. When you make a bad cast with a jig or a Texas rig or a bait that has any hard points to it, and you hit meadow or the pontoon, or even, I mean, sometimes some noises are very subtle and obviously of no consequence, but that stuff tends to alert fish. You want to avoid that. You can flat out ruin your prospects of catching any fish on that dock. Let's say you run into it before you're making a good cast. Your first cast nails something metal or big and makes a really loud noise. It lands on top of the dock and makes that sort of noise. In my opinion, you want your presentations to be as natural and streamlined as you can. I remember 10 years ago, whatever, I recall before I sort of had my second wave of fishing, because I've had sort of two waves of like intense fishing in my life. I remember watching, I think it was Andy Montgomery in his bass boat, like talk to the camera while he roll casted and flipped, and he picked apart the stock, and he was getting his bait into places with no effort whatsoever. It was silent, and he was catching good fish that way. And I remember, that's kind of how you have to do it. So I'm a firm believer in sort of a quiet approach. And in any kayak, I don't care what brand it is, it's not brand specific. In any kayak, you have the ability to get wherever you want on the dock. Sometimes you got the ability to get on the inside. You could literally get in the slips and underneath the overhanging boats, whether they're occupied or not. You can get into, especially if water levels are low. I mean, you can literally get in and around those things. You can certainly get to all the good points of the fishing, the back, the front pilings, the sides. And that's what I did. I mean, with the 360, I don't have to worry about a paddle in my hand. And like turning and maneuvering it just for your casting angles is ridiculously cool. Once you have a fish on, you also have the luxury of like gaining the advantage. If he's spinning you around a piling this way, you're not sort of at the mercy. So I couldn't imagine fishing it, these docks out of any other platform. Certainly not with anything else in my hand to give you those little micro thrusts. So it was certainly something that I used, and I use the electronics too to try to distinguish brush piles and stuff like that. And I quickly figured out that they were kind of all the hits of the fish were coming on particular sides of the dock, and that was the down current side.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned electronics. Are you using side scan on those docks, or
Just
forward facing?
side scan and down scan. So
Nice.
I'll just split screen if I see it on side scan, cruising around the dock, and I did fish a lot of new docks on Sunday, trying to replicate what I found on Saturday without it being the same ones. Lessons learned from the past. Side scan primarily, but you don't catch everything on side scan, especially on your first swings through. But when you're cruising the perimeter around the deck, you can find them with something a little more down. So I don't know if I spotted everything, but I certainly was comfortable with finding what I wanted to throw at on most docks. Most docks had them. Most docks, they'll I mean, especially on Lake Chickamauga. I mean, you'll find a lot of sunken stuff on most docks.
You think that's guys crappie fishing, or trying to get panfish, or bass guys, or?
I don't know. I think I'm not sure. I think predominantly crappies, maybe.
Gotcha. That's kind of what I figured too, but
yeah,
you never know. I'm lousy with electronics, but one of the few things, like I got a decent side scan unit last year, And that's one of the few things that I confident that I understand what it is. I still have trouble translating what I'm seeing on the screen into like what's actually down there. But the trees, like trees where you see the forks, that's the
Totally.
one thing that stands out where I'm like, I
Absolutely.
know what that is.
Yeah, a lot of that stuff's undeniable, and
I
it took
can
it took
drop a
me
waypoint.
yeah, it took me several years to dial in with side scan, and there's still tons. There's still room for me to learn, and obviously, side scan is not talked about as you know, FFS has dominated not only what people use but the conversation too.
Mm.
And I'm certainly not the first or like the voice or anything like that. A lot of people are still a champion of side scan. A lot of people still are advocates for it. Talk about how effective it is. I love it. Um, I have a brand new HDS 12 Lowrance that I think I've used it. I used it for like 3 intense days on Cayuga. I've had a couple fun fishing days with it that weren't like extended days. They were just 1 or 2 days. And then I had it for this event. So I have not had it for a long time. Right off the bat, with just a little tweaking to get the kind of things that I'm familiar with dialed in, I mean, I couldn't give it better reviews. I mean, it's stunning. Having something 12 inches in the center is it, it's great. But boy, man, like my mechanics and my natural like the ways I fish were just had to be adjusted a little bit because when I would roll up to these docks, I do a lot of like I don't want to stand up and have these fish get a look at me on the inside or anything like that. I'm kind of stealthy, and I do a lot of roll casting. I have the rod in my left hand, and I'm just sort of maybe with the rudder on my right to just kind of get a position. And I'll fire like 2 or 3 quick roll casts, and you know, on several occasions, my rod or my line might clip the top of that graph. You know, that's sort of a work in progress, learning how to adapt to you know some of the differences of how I've organized my kayak or what's on it. But it's great. I mean, like the view and like, you know, it's, you know, on 100, you know, it's just great. It's got like a big fat screen. I can see what's on side scan, super detailed.
Nice.
Um, and it was sort of it was user friendly in that respect. The unit does so much more, but I mean, I'll have to dive into like the manuals and like figure that stuff out later.
Yeah, it's one thing I can't say that I ever spent a whole lot of time like looking at the manuals.
I don't like that.
I need to.
I
It's
hate
probably
that.
why I'm bad at it.
Yeah, yeah. There's 5 or 6 things I need the graph to do, and I think it does that. I mean, ultimately, I would like to get like an HDMI cable or like stream like the NFL Network on it. If there's a decent signal, that'd be kind of cool. You could do that on it, but other than that, it's a real cool display, and I understand like you know that they already got like that Eagle stuff coming out with like all the 3 like you know with all the just one transducer you need or whatever like that. So I don't know. I don't pretend to like keep up with the game. I had live active target 2 on order, and it was just on back order for like 3 or 4 months, and I just kind of got tired of that, so I canceled it. And I think that tells you all you need to know about how excited I am to have you know the live target apparatus and like that kind of
Yeah.
that like and to do that kind of thing. Um,
That's one of the drawbacks that's kinda kept me from it. But aside like, price is the biggest one. I
yeah,
look at it like I'm gonna spend almost what I paid for my kayak.
it's more
So
affordable these days, but yeah, you're right, man, for sure. It's expensive.
but the other one was you know, basically what you said, the apparatus, like, how am I it's just an extra thing I've gotta worry about, and
Well, it is, and make no lie, you know, you see so many on the used market for sale after 3 or 4 months or 6 months. As an angler, realize they either don't enjoy it, or they don't, you know, they don't want, you know, they don't want to be, they just don't like it. They don't like having that on their boat, and but you know, on the other side of the coin, obviously it's a phenomenal tool. Obviously
yeah.
obviously with experience and knowledge of using that tool, you can go really far, have very successful days, you know. So I mean, I'm not shunning it. I'm open to it. If anything, I'm just lazy about it. You know, if anything, yeah, I don't want to like deal with all that stuff. And it's mostly in my head, you know, it's mostly in my head. Like, hey, I don't want to worry about it because I don't have it. It's not like I see it and experienced it. And I'm like, yeah, see it. I had it and I didn't like it. Like in my head, I'm saying that I don't want that stuff on there. Maybe maybe if I had the forward facing tournament, I could have just picked the docks that had the dang fish on it.
Yeah.
It's just gone from dock to dock, like boop, no.
Well, from what I hear, it helps you with efficiency in that way. Again,
Totally.
I've only really experienced it once, and that was because a buddy, Casey Reed, let me kind of tag along, and
Yeah,
I was basically tethered to his kayak so I
yeah.
could look at his screen. I couldn't see necessarily where the cone was pointed, but I could see on his screen sort of what he's looking at, and
Well,
um,
I'll tell you what,
it's
Justin. I don't think
it's awesome.
it is. It's very cool, and a lot. And some of our kayaking colleagues have adapted to it quite well and are pretty handy with it. But for the most part, I mean, of course, there's some exceptions, and there have been some outcomes. But for the most part, I don't think people like you and I. I don't think we're losing to forward-facing sonar in the kayak space. I don't really think that it's like, dude, if now that you don't have it, there's no way you can compete. I don't think that's true at all.
Yeah.
Um,
I thought that about motors, honestly. Like, talking about technology, like, I
Well,
was
that's
sort
something
of
I'd like to talk about because believe it or not, this is the second event I've ever had a motor for ever, and
really
I've managed to stay consistent, be in AOI races, be right there at end of year championships, grinding throughout this whole national years with just the pedal drive, and I mean, looking back, that was kind of nuts because people were seeing 6 times more water, being 50 times more fresh physically.
Mhm.
The wear and tear it took on my pedal drives, and I, I mean, I'm waking up on an important Saturday, wondering if my pedal drive is going to hit this particular stump and like frizzle out on me and stuff like that. Meanwhile, I see people drinking coffee, tying 6 Texas rigs with their feet up, cruising to their space, cruising to their spots. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Here I am, like I remember at Caddo, like at the head of the pack with like 6 trolling motors and and torpedoes, and here I am going 4.5. Oh, headed back to Clinton, and then by the time I get to Clinton, there's 16 pounds of sweat all over me. I need to just breathe for like 15 minutes
You
before I
can't
can
even
even dial in on my cast. Yeah.
you can't even stand up because your legs are all noodly.
Totally,
It
totally. So,
it's,
yeah, it's kind of embarrassing because, I have been doing this relatively full time for quite some years. You would think that, potentially a figure like me might have those kind of things, or have access to those kind of resources. I certainly do. But you're right. You're right. Getting back to our original statement, you'd mentioned you thought that way about motors, the way, we're talking about other advancements in technology. And I did too. I'm like, yeah, motor sounds cool, whatever. Maybe I'd like that. And I said, I don't want that stuff on. I don't want to worry about extra batteries. And I don't worry about this and that. And that's just ridiculous because I will say that, certainly on bigger bodies of water, maybe the national trail, I think you definitely have to have one to compete more consistently. And I was very consistent without one. And I think now I'm going to get into more lethal status with one because
there you go.
I saw that the advantage of it. This just on Chick, I didn't have a good practice because I really wasn't on the water for many hours, and I was able to compensate that for one day on practice on Friday and during the tournament by zooming around and not having to worry about all that physical expenditure simply to change spots or even to entertain new spots. So what it really is it's like and I know I'm late to this game, of course I know, but it's a paradigm shift. It's like thinking about it in a whole new different way. It's like wires to wireless, or like the Pony Express to email and stuff like that.
It opens up so much more
I mean,
water at every ramp.
it changes the whole way I attack like the day or how I go to bed at night in the hotel with much less anxiety. Like, you start reading all the maps and you're like, you get map eyes and stuff. And you're like, what? You're going over things 3 or 4 times. You're doubting this and that, you're thinking about this. And really it was great that way. So I can't wait to maybe even upgrade things a little more because I just got a 180. I got the Newport 180, and I was geeked with that. Like I'm getting 4.3 with just nothing, with just kicking my legs up. But then if I start to pedal with it, I'll get like 5.4. And man, I felt, pretty good. I think with the NK300, you get like 6 or something like that, like six and a
Yeah.
half or something like that.
I think it's even more. And
Yeah.
my Outback does pretty well with the 180. I'm
Yeah.
pretty happy with it.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of like you. Like it took me a while to actually get one. Like I think it was
Yeah.
last
Yeah.
I bought the thing the winter, like going into the 23 season, but then I didn't even have it working
S-
until
Same,
it
same,
was that
same.
summer. It was like June. I had it like functional. But the thing that kills me is, I thought that I was hurting myself, like holding myself back by not having it. And that once I got it, oh, I'm gonna, it's like I'm gonna next level, and
Well,
now I'm really gonna be competing.
yeah.
And it has not worked out that way for me. I'm not saying that it won't for you, but for
Well,
me, like,
well,
dude,
I'm not going to say like it's going to be a direct correlation immediately, like from this day on, you're only going to see me in this top of the standing. No, it's not like that at all. It's a paradigm shift in just how I approach the tournament, how I approach like the day, and even within the day, like where I can go and what I can do. So I'm just like thrilled that there's some like, things that would normally be reservations that are just going to be eliminated. And boy, I feel so much better. Like the ride home was not nearly as sore. Like the last couple days, they weren't nearly like the sore points that I have, like, like in the lower back region and stuff like that. Most of my soreness was associated with like my casting stuff. It was like my hands and like my shoulders, because there was like just a million flips and skips and pitches and stuff like that. So not what I'm doing is like I'm revisiting some like last couple of years and be like, man, what could I have done if I had a motor at some of these, because I've been right there.
yeah.
So yeah, it's cool that way. I look forward to exploring more of it. I don't have any steering options, so I'm just using the stock steering. So I upgraded to an aluminum rudder. I got this really cool rudder from Snipe Air Industries, and we swapped it out. And I remember the initial test that I had on Lake Cayuga was with the stock rudder, and I worked pretty good. But this one has much more responsiveness, like you get that aluminum gives you much more.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So like I was able
So
to
you've
turn it
got the pin in it.
a little more
Um, you've got the pin in it that's locking it
in,
straight in the
in,
motor.
in the motor.
Mhm.
Well, that's just, that was part of one of the things that unfortunately went wrong this weekend is that pin either came out. I'm not even sure where it was to begin with, because what we did at Catch was we put this bracket on it, but the bracket was just this temporary prototype thing that we had for Cayuga. Initially, what we wanted to do was bring it back from Cayuga, design a better motor mount, get my feedback on what was going on. It was kind of like I was field testing some solutions that we were coming up with. We never did it.
Cool.
So, but I never dialed in and got the new bracket and got it stationary. So, I don't know. That shaft just kind of worked its way loose. So I had to get it out. I had to I had to like jury rig some things. I had to tighten down some of the screws in there and stuff like that. And I got it. And from Friday on, I got it to work just fine. But yeah, I don't know the ins and outs of how they sort of built the motor. I mean, I'm terrible with that kind of stuff. Thank God for Duke and Marco at the Catch Shop that can run me through that stuff and design stuff around my boat. Because if it isn't like a simple T-track or like simple wirings or plug and play, it's always crazy like that.
Yeah.
And it was like catastrophic this week. Like a lot of things broke. So, like a little boy, I was like patting myself on the back, like, damn, Dusty, you did a great job, because normally you'd be cursing and like, man, what's going on? I can't even practice. That's foul, this, and that. And I kind of was a little bit, but I was able to, when something broke or when something like went wrong, I just calmly dealt with it. And I think that was like really like the true, that was like the real victory of the week. Was that stuff really didn't like impact me at all. I just kind of dealt with it, rolled with the punches, got the stuff fixed. Had some really cool people assist me, and got back in Friday and took care of business. So that's kind of what you have to do. But yeah, man, that motor, gosh, it makes all the difference in the world. And I can see how as soon as you get it on day one and press that throttle and go, how you'll never want to go back. And that's kind of a dangerous thing.
Whee!
It's a dangerous thing,
Yeah.
because we get our minds like, okay, now there's no going back. And that's kind of dangerous because that seems to imply or suggest that you can't be successful without one. And you obviously can. I'm living proof that you can. You can
Yeah.
be successful with excuse me, you can be successful with a sit-in 10-foot kayak and a paddle if your spots are realistic and your mechanics are good and you can bring your equipment seriously, man. So
I love fishing out of mine. I've spent probably more time this year in my little 10-foot ultralight than in
yeah,
my Outback, and I mean, all my competitions are in the Outback. Um,
I love the
and,
Outback. I wish I had an Outback.
like, if I'm gonna to me, it's just versatile. I can do
Totally.
a ton with it, but
Absolutely.
I've tried to focus on some little tiny creeks this year, little small waters, look with current chasing smallmouth, and it
On Chick
just
or in
no,
your
no,
area?
no, 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 just, close to home here.
Yeah.
And I do a lot of, especially like the summertime, I've done a lot of dragging upstream
Oh yeah.
and I'm not trying to tear my Hobie up in those
Totally.
in
Totally.
those little places, but
You
just
know,
something about those simple days
well,
is there's this
there's more than there's more than something, I think, you know, uh, when I look back at like the last 7 or 8 years of what I had referenced as like the second phase of fishing for me, boy, oh boy, man, I mean, there have just been the some really great stuff with the kayaks and the Hobies and that kind of scene, but really, what I'll really probably entertain a little bit more potentially on my deathbed is some of the golden years I had because the whole reason I'm in this space is because my wife had gifted me a big box cheap sit-in kayak for a birthday gift 10 or 12 years ago or whatever, and uh, just slapping that thing on my old Forerunner when we would camp and we'd camp every weekend and stuff and just slapping that thing on, talk about a paradigm shift. I talked about, motors, no motors before, like, I would like maybe throw from the dock or rent a boat or something like that. And like with that little kayak, you could just slip it in anywhere you wanted. It was like 40 pounds. It was on the top. I had like 3 rods, a couple planos. And, it would give me instant access anywhere. And I was like a lunatic. I didn't even like know about, I wasn't like, like kayak safety guy or anything like that. Like PFD wasn't always on. And if at ice out, I'd be like going out to like, whatever section of the lake, like ripping a jerk bait or, stuff like that. But the point is that it was just no worries, like there was like nothing. It was like, oh, this is just great. It reminds me of being a little boy.
yeah.
And yeah, that's definitely what it's all about. The competition and some of the things you have to be vigilant about to be halfway successful at competition. Some of those things can be a turnoff sometimes, to have to
Yeah.
constantly do some stuff.
Those and I think you touched on it, the simplicity of it. Like you
Yeah.
don't have to have a ton of gear. You
Right.
really in those small boats, you can't take very much stuff. So
Yeah.
I feel like it eliminates a lot of decisions and clutter. I'm thinking about where am I going to find and not. All right, do I pick up this jig or
Le-
this bait, this color, this one, and like there's just fewer options. So it's simple.
Yeah, yeah. And when I go to a restaurant, and there's a billion things on the menu. It's like seriously, it's like I hate that. I like places that like have a more simplified approach. I'm a huge less is more guy. On Sunday, and not so much on Saturday because on Saturday I was feeling so good because I was getting big bites late in the day and like the pressure was just all down. I was feeling ecstatic and top of the world. But on Sunday, I said to myself, I'm going to slim down on the rods. Saturday night, I said, you know what, for Sunday, I think I'm going to only have like maybe 6 or 7 rods, and that'll feel great. Nope. I somehow managed to put 11 or 12 rods in there. And at some point, when I was cruising from dock to dock, I didn't have everything secure because I literally didn't want to take 5 minutes out of my day to like line things up and organize it. So I had a lot of clutter and like a lot of like rods hanging out on the front, like dangling lures and stuff like that, which is a
Mhm.
recipe for disaster, especially when you're around docks and stuff like that. So yeah, man, there's something to be said about less is more. I feel hyper confident when I'm cruising out fishing and I got like 4 rods and I know that there's going to be 1 or 2 locked in my hand. Like the last Michigan Hobie Bass Open at the Great Lakes, dude. Spinner bait and a swim jig, basically. I had a buzz bait too. So it was spinner bait, swim jig. I love those days when you could just have that. And, it's like, it's just a huge boost in confidence. Sometimes when you look on your deck and all you see is your cutoff lures, and you got every single color in the book. You look at your little Hobie crates or whatever, and you see all this different stuff you've been through. That's not a good sign sometimes.
Pile of baits at your feet, and it's not like all the same bait that's like torn up plastic, where it's like
Totally. It's not a good
20
sign
different
sometimes.
lures
You're
you're
digging
trying.
through
Yeah.
the box. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I, uh, I couldn't agree more. Um, I want to jump back a little bit. You touched on kind of your overcoming kind of obstacles for this tournament, and I think
Yeah.
that's cool because I've found the mental side of fishing is huge. Like when I'm
Oh,
able to be calm and like not have a meltdown when I miss a fish or I make a bad cast or just kind of keep it together. Um,
absolutely.
like I do better. Like, and I don't know what it is exactly, but I'm wondering if you've had similar experience.
Oh, geez, Justin. I mean, we can have a podcast just based on this topic, and the podcast would have unending topics for 2 or 3 years. Seriously, this is the topic. This is the topic that undergirds most people's lives, no matter what it is they're doing: relationships, job, goals, passions, drive, thought, anything. Like our brain, is like the things we think. Like this is like one of the most important things in the world, and it certainly applies to fishing. So. I'm a special kind of character, I'm real introspective, and I know myself. I mean, I know myself super well. So, I mean, I'm a little different. So, like the advice I give to people, some of it has to be taken with a little grain of salt because I'm the kind of, if like, for example, if you watched one of my live feeds, man, I'm the kind of guy that can sit there and calmly work a mag draft in 2 feet of waves, in the middle of Lake Cayuga, cursing a string of curse words that would just embarrass a sailor, because I had missed a 21-inch fish, and still, like get one in the next couple casts. But as I'm losing my mind, like embarrassingly slow, but that's like kind of like part of what like I love about the competitive aspect of it. It's kind of like what keeps me coming back. If I was not getting fired up and I wasn't like sort of getting emotional here and there, that is for me is probably a reflect. What's up, babe? you can come by, honey. It's probably a reflection of the fact that I'm not in it. I'm not in it. I know with people, if I'm not like interested in what you're doing or like that, it's probably, it's like if I'm listening to you and I'm talking to you, it's because, it's like I'm interested. Like I'm interested. There's like some sort of interaction there. And that's how it is with fishing. And I don't really want it another way. Like the second, like I don't get fired up when I miss a fish or like, it's like, oh, whatever. Or like, if I come in like 17th place out of like, 150, which isn't bad. And then I'm like, it's like, I want there to constantly be the need to improve. Like I referenced it a couple times in some posts over the last couple of days. It's like, I compare it to like the country's motto that the founding fathers had in mind, to form a more perfect union. It's a really sly and clever response to not have to do anything perfect or say anything set in stone. We'll just kind of always try to be more perfect, but that's what we can never be perfect. So, you always kind of try to be more. And, fourth place, being a quarter inch away from, third place, always like, come on, you got to do whatever it is to sort of be more perfect. So I bring a lot of passion and enthusiasm, if you will, to it. So, that rah, 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 and that like grr and like the some of the animation and stuff, that's part of the package for me. And I think it helps my competitive spirit. For some other people, that is disastrous. That is absolutely not like the way to go. A more calm approach, being able to just forget something the next second. That is what I'd recommend to your average angler. Like, let's say if I was hosting an education class on the mental aspect of fishing, that is what I would like universally recommend that people do, or learn to do whichever way they can for a better angling approach, or at least a more enjoyable one for sure.
I think I'm in that camp where like I start to like for me it's almost like it swells. Like I'll make
Yeah.
one bad cast and it's
Yeah.
you backlash or we were talking about the noise early. You make a cast and bang it into a pontoon and now
Oh,
you've messed up your your dock there and
Yeah.
like that kind of stuff. You do one and then there'll be another one and just a few things and it slowly builds. And then there's the one thing that sets it off. Like it comes to a boil and then it's just you blow up. And it's hard to get that sort of like peace back
It
after you've gotten, at least for me, like after I get all ratcheted up
No, Dustin,
and mad.
we're not alone. Every single person goes through this, whether they talk about it or not, whether they post about it on social media or not, and to each their own. I mean, handle it however you want, be whoever you want. But I think, man, 95% of the people experience these things, and it's part of life. I mean, if it was super easy and like not stressful at all, like I was saying, it might not be worth it. It's
Yeah.
it's cool that way. It's not always fun, but it's cool that way that it keeps you honest.
I think my best tournament performance to date was at Winnipesaukee a couple years ago. And that day, it could not have started off worse. Like I'd found a few fish that were, I think some fish like guarding fry, bedding fish. And that was really all I had. And the very first fish, I pull up on it's tucked back in this little marina. I know the exact cast I have to make. The fish bites and swims around a prop, and I set the hook, and
Oh,
it just it instantly breaks, and you see where it just sliced right down the line,
yeah.
and I'm sitting there going, like I don't know what it was about that morning that I didn't like freak out that much. I literally picked up my phone and was like, "Oh, we'll do an Instagram reel," and just it's like, this is bad. This is not how you want your tournament to start. And
yeah, the safety net. Yeah.
it was weird. Like normally I'm not like normally that would rattle me more. For whatever reason that day I didn't get rattled. I was just like, all right, well, let's just try something different. I just started skipping a stick worm around docks and started catching fish, and just it turned into a really good event for me. But it could have gone completely the other direction if I'd handled that differently.
Well,
So
yeah.
it's
The trick is like to not to like just compartmentalize and to just not let things build and stack. I mean, a bunch of little things are going to go on. I think tournaments are overcoming problems. That's what they are. They're overcoming some sort of challenge, whether it's just you and the fish in that particular spot or day or weekend or 2 days or whatever, or if it's a series of things like I had to deal with. It's just like kind of overcoming things and getting close to putting together that piece of puzzle. So, certainly not letting things build. It's like video games, there's like health meters. Like you have it starts like building, it's like building and building and building. As long as it doesn't get to like catastrophic levels, I think you're sort of okay. A backlash here and there is normal. The pros get them. A boat cutting you off. I mean, geez, man, that's like par for the course, especially on Lake Chickamauga.
Instant blood pressure. Ready to fight.
for sure. And this game also presents learning opportunities and growth opportunities like that. You can't continue to bang your head against the same bluff wall and expect things to change. I mean, if change your approach, change your diet, change the way you speak to people, change the way you drive down in the car, change the way you think about things in between tournaments. Whatever it is that you have to do. If something's broken, if there are continuously things that are getting to you on the water, there's, you're going to have to adapt and overcome somehow. Or your other option is to quit, and that's an option too.
Yeah, don't quit. Here, I don't
try not to do that, because then you're letting things, defeat you that way. So. Bad lessons in life.
This is kind of a weird question, but I don't know if I think it helps me a little bit. I don't know if it helps other people or if you do it. Like I talk to myself on the water sometimes.
Oh
I feel
God.
like
I have a dialogue.
I feel like out loud, like not like if somebody's around and I don't like you come around a corner and I always wonder like, man, I wonder if they could hear me like
they
having
can.
a full on conversation with myself for the last like 10 minutes. Like, this isn't working. Maybe we should try that. Like literally out loud saying stuff like that. And I think
Absolutely.
the times when I'm doing that, I do better. It's weird.
No, it's not weird at all. I think
you do it too.
I think it's very common. I think some people don't do it out loud, but we have that voice in our head that's sort of different. It's like a companion. I mean, it sounds schizophrenic, but it's not. It's normal. It's not like voices in your
The
head. You don't know where they're
voices
coming from.
the voices told me to cast over there.
Yeah, totally, man. It's just normal. It's like your guiding. It's like your guiding voice and critic. And you're in the places you love, Justin. You're in your comfort zone. So speaking out loud is, you're in nature. I mean, animals speak out loud. They just don't say words. They just say noises and shit, like they got Tourette's.
Mm.
And that's what we do. And some people do it more pronounced than others. And we've all grown up watching fishing shows, and even though there's a camera on them and your behavior is a little different from camera, you still see the people who say the funny things and talk often, and you see the people who shut up and don't say a word. They're just sort of, that's how they fish. And I think there's lots of things in between, but we're similar. Man, I have some, I get into goofy mode too. It's like I could just be, I could just, I'm spending time doing what I love, regardless of what's going on sometimes. And yeah, sometimes you just sort of talk to yourself a little bit here and there. But yeah, in the tournament hours when I need to pump myself up or something like that, I'm saying a bunch of goofy stuff out loud to myself for sure.
Awesome. Well, dude, I want to go one other kind of topic here before I let you go. I want to talk a little bit about kind of, I guess, this time of year, at least where I am, September. This is a tough month.
It is.
It was tough down at Chick. Is it tough where you are in Illinois? Is it a little cooler, or is this kind of a tricky month?
This is also a tricky month. I think it's a tricky. It could potentially be a tricky month around the nation or in larger geographical regions. Simply because there's just goofy things with the weather. There's goofy things with nighttime swings and maybe drastic changes. You hear the word transition a lot, and sometimes transition period for lakes, from summer patterns to more stereotypical fall patterns. But there's no perfect handbook. That's not a perfect science, and it can differentiate within the system itself, and certainly is different from, let's say, central Illinois to southeastern Tennessee. So there's so many variables. To answer your question specifically, yes, it's a tough year up here. It's a tough time of year up here. A lot of focus up by me here in the Great Lakes starts going on the rivers and harbors, fishing for some of the king salmons and browns that are running in. So a lot of people gear up for that. But yeah, you don't know what to expect up here in Illinois. You can have 88-degree days and 90-degree days, or you can have 55-degree days. So it's kind of hard to tell. Sometimes, you just kind of make sure that you have that array of rods on your deck. You'll have a top water, a crankbait, a jig. You have something to cover the spectrum. So, the good thing about fishing is that, even on the worst days, you can always, usually find a bite or two.
Gotcha. Any favorite techniques? I know that there's a whole lot of variables. Type of lake, is there grass, no lake, or no grass, current, dirty water, all that stuff's a factor. But is there anything kind of like a go-to technique or approach that you've got?
Yeah, I think it's pretty stereotypical. One thing that I'm sort of that I really never the chatterbait is what I'm trying to say. The chatterbait has obviously been a huge, popular, dominating trend as far as that style of bait, a moving, vibrating jig. The story goes that it really kind of killed the spinnerbait. That a lot of people, new people in the sport, didn't really understand or have respect for spinnerbaits because a chatterbait was something they could easily throw. People who had been throwing spinnerbaits for a majority of their life sort of replaced it with the chatterbait. I never really did that. So this time of year, when the weather starts to cool just a little bit or starts to change a little bit, and you do get that stereotypical transition where fish move from maybe deeper flats and deeper humps and deeper weed lines and edges into shallower areas, into creeks and creek arms, chasing baits of fish like that. I'm a big spinnerbait guy. I like the spinnerbait. I like the versatility. Burning it anywhere in the column. I'm a big slow roll spinnerbait guy for 3/4 ounce and 1 ounce spinnerbaits. And I love a square bill. So spinnerbait and square bill are something that you'll definitely see on my rods if I'm fishing in the latter half of September and October, without a doubt.
Nice. I like those two.
Yeah, yeah, double willow leaf usually, but sometimes that Colorado willow leaf combination could be lethal. And then like we know, there's who knows the clarity of your water, or if there's grass in it, what you're fishing. So you do never know.
I think those
I'm
are good picks, though. I think those are good starting places for most lakes.
Yeah,
Is
I don't know if it's going
there?
to be a starting point for Santee Cooper, because I'm telling you that lake is my nemesis. I have not that's a lake where I didn't even limit on one day, so I have some business to take care of there. But yeah, I don't know. We'll see. A
Dude,
lot of
I'll be
options.
rooting for you down there. It
I'm gonna need all the help I can get, so I appreciate you, buddy.
Well, I really appreciate you coming on and chatting, Dusty.
No, thanks
It's
for the
been
invite.
fun. I want to give you a minute. Yeah, I guess where can people find you on the socials?
Primarily Facebook and Instagram. So you can on Facebook it's Dusty Yakker, and Instagram it's Dusty Yakker. I do also work closely with Catch Products and Catch Outdoors, and we have a great YouTube channel there that has a variety of content. Whether you like product description and info and instruction, ragtag kayak fishermen goofing around, really cinematic and well narrated material. So Catch Outdoors on YouTube is a good place where you can see a lot of my content. Of course, the Facebook and Instagram. Yeah, those are pretty much the platforms that you can find a lot of my posts and content and videos on.
Awesome. And I do enjoy the stuff you've done with Catch.
Thanks.
It
Yeah.
seems like you get to work closely with those guys. I was looking at some of the because I'm not a big musky guy, but I'm thinking about getting one of those big catch boards. And I was looking at the video that you did breaking down the different boards, trying to decide which
Yeah.
one I was gonna throw in the kayak.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, I'm grateful for that opportunity. A bunch of great guys. We've had to really with scheduling and just some of the realities of the world. We've had to tone it down on some of our extended fishing trips and videography trips. But we're looking to get back to that pretty soon. So hopefully we can pump out some super powerful content from Catch Outdoors pretty soon.
Dude, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Anybody else you want to plug or thank? I'll
Yeah,
give you the
I
floor.
mean, thanks for all my sponsors. I really had I want to give a shout out to AJ and Steve for just grinding through another year of putting on a tournament trail. That's a job that's super difficult. Takes a lot of sacrifices. So I really appreciate them, and certainly for Steve giving me the opportunity to be on the Hobie tournament team this year. I'm not sure what's in store for next year, but I would certainly love the opportunity to continue that along. And certainly the people over at Catch, they've been just great supporters of mine. Stormy over at Dakota Lithium, the great guys over at Hobie Eyewear, the team at Navico, Lowrance. Am I forgetting anybody? If I did, just whoever supports me, big or small, I'm definitely appreciative of that. Thank you.
Well, Dusty, thanks again. If I don't talk to you before, good luck. Good luck down on Santee. Like I said, I'll be pulling for you, and best of luck.
All right. Thanks a lot, buddy. I'll hopefully I can talk to you soon or see you soon.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, Dusty Yakker. That was a lot of fun. It yeah, we definitely got down some rabbit holes there. Initially, I had planned to talk a little more about the fishing, but I really enjoy picking Dusty's brain. I think he and I are a lot alike. So that was fun. And that's going to bring us down to our last couple of segments. So we'll do Kings of the Week first, and then I'll wrap up with yakking on a budget here. But let's do Kings of the Week. Let me see if I can manage a screen share. It has been, let's see. Technology always seems, there we go. Seems like I'm always struggling with the technology here, but let's see if I can pull up. There we go. I think this is the right one. All right. So I'm going to go with 3 Kings of the Week this week. And I want to start with this one, if it'll share. All right. This is Arlie Minton. So congrats, Arlie. He posted the big bass for this Hobie tournament on Chick. That is a 23 3/4 inch bass, absolute beast. Yeah, dude, I'm jealous. That's an awesome fish. So congrats to Arlie. as our first king of the week. And then second, no screen share on this one, but I wanted to shout out Carson Holbert. He's 17 years old. This BOS on Chickamauga last weekend was his very first Hobie event. So young guy, first Hobie event, and he places 13th. He gets in the money, cut himself a nice check. 13th place, beat a lot of seasoned anglers, myself included. So a very impressive start for Carson. Congrats. You're our second king of the week. And then third, uh, you know, he's I guess you call him a frequent flyer on Kings of the Week. Russ probably has more of these. I've nominated him or given it to him more than anybody probably, but I would feel wrong not giving it to him after the performance that he put up at Chick, just dominating the field. 190 and 3/4 inches, winning by 20 and 1/4 inches, just unheard of. But that's Russ. So congrats, Russ, Carson, and Arlie, our Kings of the Week. And that's going to bring us down to the final segment, Yakking on a Budget. And I've got an interesting one this week, and it's not my own tip. I can't take credit for it. It is something that I started doing, but the first person that I ever saw do this was Chad Hoover. So shout out to Chad. It's the first one I saw publicly talking about this. But it's something you can do with your stick baits, your soft stick baits like a Senko. Anybody that fishes has probably thrown a Senko. I like the Missile 48. It does the same job for me. But regardless of the brand, any of these soft stick worms, you can actually save them and use them again. And I'll explain further. So there's kind of two ways. I like throwing it Texas style and weightless. It's a little bit different action. When you twitch it, when it's with that stick worm, when it's rigged weightless, you'll get almost like a fluke style action. You can get a little bit of a dart out of the bait, but you don't get that same action that you do with a wacky rig where the tails come together. So to me, that's a little bit of a drawback. I think that shimmy and then you twitch the rod and the tails, come together is really nice with a wacky rig. But to me, the wacky rig also, that little small hook. There's times, it's not all the time, but there's times where you go to lean into that fish, and that hook point just buries in that open exposed hook buries in the plastic, and you never get a hook in the fish. But so pros and cons for both techniques. But what I'll do is if I'm, say I'm fishing wacky rig one day, I'm catching them that way, and that's working. As I'm tearing those baits up, and I get it to where I can't continue to use that same piece of plastic. Instead of throwing it away, you can save that, and a lot of times take that same worm that's already been used wacky and throw it Texas style, and your plastic is durable still in the right places to hold that Texas rig. And for anybody that's listening, hopefully I'm explaining that well, but you can do the same thing in reverse. A Texas rig, whether you've been fishing it with a sinker and kind of working it on bottom, pitching it around cover, or fishing it weightless. If you've got a Texas rig on there, you tear the head of that plastic up, and then, the bait sliding down. It's time to switch to a different new worm. You can save that bait, and still you're going to have a spot where you can do a wacky rig. So save those stick worms and do double duty with them, and yeah, that'll save you some money when it comes to fishing soft plastics. You'll have to buy a little bit fewer baits, maybe a couple fewer packs throughout the season, if you'll save those plastics and use them for double duty. And that's going to do it for this edition of Kayak Fishing Weekly. Thanks again to Dusty for coming on. Enjoyed talking to him. We're going to have him again on soon. Thanks everybody for tuning in. And until next time, remember to take it kid fishing.